So the final question I have for you, and look, I fully agree with you. This is a horrible tragedy, and I commend you for speaking out in spite of the general lack of awareness in the country and also the hostility to even thinking about these things. But what can the ordinary citizen do to put an end to the sanctions? I know most people are pessimistic. They've been convinced they don't know enough. It's outside of their control. But we can't sit by and let this happen, can we?
No, we really can't. I think it's time that Americans started to question, why are we being taught to hate so many people? China's not attacking us, Russia's not attacking us, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Venezuela's not attacking, Cuba's not attacking us. Um, and yet we are taught, we teach our children almost from the time they're born to hate and despise these other people. Now there are things that I would change if I were a citizen of China or of Iran or wherever. Um, but those are not my country. My country is the United States, and believe me, we've got problems enough of our own without going over and trying to dictate lifestyles to other nations. But people need to remind themselves. We have a generally Christian nation, and people might reflect on the fact that it was Jesus who said, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be the children of God. When is the last time that the U.S. has spoken about peace? When is the last time we have ever said, let's end the wars? We don't talk about ending wars anymore. We talk about continuing them indefinitely. And I think it's time that we began to question, why are we taught to hate so many people in this country? We need to start looking at sanctions. Sanctions are sadistic, they're evil uh, actions taken. We never could do the same thing that we do today because of the lack of computer technology. But today, we can control the flow of information and so forth. We devalue countries' currency. The Syrian pound was doing okay, and now we have prohibited banks from exchanging Syrian pounds. So the Syrians cannot purchase uh, repair parts for American built machinery. They can't purchase medicine to heal cancer or heart disease or diabetes or things like that. Um, and we prohibit the importation of food and fuel to Syria. We have imposed a naval blockade. We seize ships at sea with no authorization. Uh, the the seizure of a ship from another nation that you're not at war with is illegal under international law. And because it's illegal, if you don't have a declared war against the nation whose shipping you're seizing, then the seizure is an act of piracy. And the United States is actively engaging in piracy against against oil ships that are sent by Iran and other countries to supply the Syrian nation. We just Americans need to start to challenge and question the whole idea of sanctions. It's become every time we have some little irritation with one country or another, something we dislike, we say, "Oh, let's get out there. Let's sanction them. Let's cause suffering." We are even talking about sanctioning Germany because it wants to complete the last 1% of a gas pipeline between Russia and Germany. Germany is one of our oldest and most staunch allies. And we're talking about punishing them because they trade as they are allowed to do with other countries. We're also threatening Australia, believe it or not. And I know there's some people who are my age who took R&R in Australia during the Vietnam War and just learned to love the Australian people. We are telling Australia to shut down its coal industry because we've decided that in the United States, the governing elite is going to cut off all carbon fuels, and we're going to live on windmills and sun chips and corn alcohol in the gas tank. It's bizarre, and we have just become sort of a global dictator that we don't try to find common ground any longer with countries where we inevitably will have some disputes. Today, we simply have secretaries of state, and I think Mike Pompeo is a classic example. John Kerry was very bad. Pompeo got even worse. He was just a bombastic, selfish bully. He struck you less as a diplomat and more as the kind of schoolyard bully who would walk around with a gang of kids behind him, and he'd see a little boy with a crutch walking by himself on the playground, and he'd say, "Hey, watch this," and he'd run over and kick the crutch and throw the kid down on his face and laugh for the other kids. This guy is despicable. I can't believe that he prides himself on the fact that he has been able to create so much suffering. And I don't see things getting better under Tony Blinken. He's the one who has been threatening Australia with sanctions and saying, you know, we're not going to have you making your own decisions on your national energy policy. We're going to make your policies in Washington. This is we are the worst uh, ally that a nation could ever have because we don't hesitate to threaten and bully all of the countries that are supposedly allied with us. It's a very strange thing, but Americans really, they've got to wake up to what these sanctions are. Every time that they impose a sanction, they say, we don't do this to cause suffering for ordinary people. It's targeted at the leadership. That is almost a standard operating procedure to make that statement. It is unequivocally false. The impact falls on the ordinary person who suddenly finds that the cash in their wallet is devalued, who finds that they don't have enough bread to feed the family, um, who finds that they have to go out to American trash dumps to wipe little bits of food from the cans that were thrown away by American soldiers just so that they can keep their children alive. This is not America, and Americans really need to come to grips with this casual implementation of sanctions. Sanctions are fundamentally cruel, evil actions, and there's simply no justification. If you're not in an active state of war with a nation, which I hope doesn't happen, but there is no legal justification for them, and there certainly is no moral justification. They are just the antithesis of Christianity. They're the antithesis of other religions, of Islam. They are incompatible with any notion of mercy and kindness and decency. So I think I would like to see our churches begin to question sanctions. What are we doing? Why are we so cruel towards other people?
I think some of the churches are starting to speak out, but we need much more, as you point out. And it's the ultimate irony that we talk about a rules-based order when we're the ones who make the rules, the American establishment, the City of London, NATO, and imposing these cruel sanctions, as you point out. So I thank you very much for joining me today and for laying this out so clearly. And I'm sure we'll be back in touch with you again in the very near future.
Thank you for what you're doing. I really, really appreciate it very much.